Hello everyone and welcome to my latest Developer Diary recap video. Just for clarity, this one is not a sponsored video. Now if you're unfamiliar with these diaries, I cover them rather sporadically, but if you check the description you can see all of them listed as well as all of their topics, so if you want to know how something works, you can find it quickly and easily. Developer Diary number 36, Ambitions. Characters in Imperator Rome have their own free will to an extent. As mentioned before, you play as the ruler of the state and can assign jobs to people, but generally they can live their own lives, make friends, have rivals, they can get sick, change their religion, or whatever might be the case. A lot of that is out of your control as the ruler. They also have their own ambitions of what they want to accomplish, and this is basically like a personal objective. If it's achieved, then the person gets a reward. This might give them money, a new trait, some new skill points, or trigger an event with bigger repercussions. For instance, all babies have the same ambition, and that is to grow up. As they're doing that, they have chances to obtain skills and traits. Once they get to the age of 12, then they start thinking about what they want to be, a warrior, a governor, famous, or any number of things. This again, over time, will start shaping their personality. A kid who wants to become a warrior usually has a chance each month to gain some martial skill, but maybe at the risk of losing the other skills. Once they reach adulthood, the ambitions become something that you as the ruler can influence more easily. Perhaps they want to become a general, so you could assign them to an army. Or if they want to become rich, you can give them a job in office where they slowly acquire wealth. Now with so many characters, it's obviously pretty impossible to probably fulfill everyone's ambition, and typically if they aren't achieved, nothing really goes wrong. But if they are, they might get performance boosts to their job, loyalty boosts, new skills or traits and things like that, so it's something you can work on if you want to beef up some of the characters that you like. It obviously adds to the roleplay a little bit as well. Sometimes they want to have a kid, conquer territory, and so on, so there's a lot of variety there. A character may only have one ambition at a time, and sometimes they are content and don't require anything. Diary number 37, Civil Wars and Rebellions. A civil war occurs in Imperator Rome when 33% of the armed forces in your country are in the hands of disloyal generals, or if 33% of your population resides in disloyal provinces. So let's just pause to think about that. Essentially, if 1/3 of your military units are under the command of disloyal generals, that'll trigger a civil war. So what is a disloyal general? That's simply a general that has below 33% loyalty. 33% is essentially almost always the threshold for loyalty to go from loyal to disloyal. You can still interact with these disloyal generals, possibly bribing or befriending them to raise their loyalty, but you won't be able to control their army anymore. So you can't split their troops off and disband them, but you might be able to if you notice that that loyalty is low early on and units haven't become personally loyal to the general. If they do become personally loyal, then they'll refuse to leave them even if their loyalty is fine. The other way a civil war can occur is if 33% of your population reside in disloyal provinces. So what's a disloyal province? Well, again, it's a province with a loyalty of 33% or less. And provinces become disloyal through unhappy pops. Pops become unhappy through a bunch of things like bad governors, conflicting religion and culture, not enough buildings, war exhaustion, aggressive expansion, laws, and probably a bunch of other things too. So that's how civil wars occur. What happens in the civil war is that the country will divide and be locked in an eternal war until one side capitulates. During this time, cities are instantly captured by armies. It's all-out war. If the AI beat you and take your last city, it's game over. If you beat them, the country will be unified again and a bunch of the disloyal characters will be imprisoned. That information wasn't fully covered in this diary, but I pulled it from diary number 19 and combined the two so you can kind of get a refresher in what was going on there. These civil wars are not to be confused with rebellions. A rebellion occurs when 20% of your population resides in disloyal provinces that also happen to be of foreign culture as the dominant culture there. If this occurs, a new country and several new ones could be created representing the different cultures across the various rebellious provinces, and you'll be in a war where they aim to achieve independence. Now, unlike civil wars, here you can actually negotiate with them and offer them independence, ending it should you wish. This diary also went in depth about subject states. There's a variety of subject types in the game, outlined in the diary, and they all have different conditions, be it their size, government types, or military traditions, and they all give different effects and receive effects from their overlords. And for the sake of time, I'll just go over them very briefly. You have a tributary. It's a country that pays 25% of their income for protection. They cannot be integrated. A feudatory. I learned how to pronounce it. A country that pays 35% of their manpower per month to their overlord, and they can be integrated. A tribal vassal. They pay 15% of their manpower to their overlord, but also receive back civilization value. They cannot be integrated. A client state. These pay 25% of their monthly income, and they can be integrated. A satrapy. A satrapy must have Persian military traditions. They pay half their income monthly, and they can be integrated. Bactria was used as an example. So these are all the subject types. Here's some of the rules that they all obey. Subjects may trade, but they cannot enter diplomatic agreements with other countries. All of their old agreements are broken when they become subjugated. Their overlord always has military access, and subjects share access to any other subjects of their overlord. All subjects can declare war for independence, and I think that's the only way they can be independent. As far as we know, there's no way for a nation to support the independence of another, which is going to make independence wars really risky affair if you don't know whether or not others are going to join you in their war against your overlord. Diary number 38, Migration. Before we get into migration, it's worth having a reread or rewatch of Developer Diary number 35, where we discussed tribal governments. To be able to migrate, you need to be a tribal chiefdom, and to be a chiefdom, you need to have low centralization value if you're a different form of tribal state. So this means all tribal states can eventually migrate if they work towards becoming a chiefdom if they want, if they aren't already one. Migration is done on a city-by-city basis and can be initiated in any city that has at least 3 pops for the cost of oratory power. Migrating will turn up to 20 of the pops in a city into light infantry. This creates an army that then can move around like normal, but doesn't actually require military access to cross foreign territory. Even if you occupy no cities, you can still survive so long as you have a migration unit in an army. When it comes to settling, you can settle in any city that has less pops than in your migration army. You can settle uncolonized territory or territory you occupy, or even enemy territory if you occupy it during a war. This means you can actually take territory during wars through migration rather than needing to get it in a peace deal. When settling, regardless of what they were before, the migration units will turn into tribesmen pops of your culture and your religion. The pops that were already living there don't change, however, so bear that in mind. Another feature of migration is the ability to pillage. If an army contains migration units, they can pillage enemy cities if you occupy them in a war. This gives the city a penalty to pop growth and commerce for 5 years, and it nets you military, oratory, civic, and religious power based on the number of pops and civilization value there. It might be the case that it's just useful to have a couple migrant units in an army, just to be able to use this feature, as it doesn't cost anything or take time to do it. And that's essentially it for this diary. Migration seems like a fun way to play aggressive and move freely around the map, and also just to be a big disruption to more civilized empires. Diary number 39, Families. Every country has several families that contain all of that country's characters. Families will expect to be paid 2% of the state's income when kind of taking it from all their characters and adding it up. If they don't earn that amount, then the family will be considered scorned, and every character in that family will take a loyalty hit each month. To amend this, you can give characters jobs in government, governorships, or put them in control of armies. If they have relations with the ruler or have holdings in a city, this can also appease the family, as generally this means that they're earning money from those things. This will also in turn raise family prestige, which is just sort of a way of identifying which families get a lot of favourable treatment, and maybe which are less favoured. From what we know, characters will marry each other on their own accord, and may or may not have children based on their prominence level, which I think might be tied to family prestige. I'm not sure on that, and also then if they have a job. So essentially, if a character has a job, their family is more likely to gain prestige, which in turn gains more prominence, I think, which increases the chance of marrying and having kids. With this system, it seems that your active characters will prosper and proliferate, while inactive ones may have their family lines end, and they'll obviously be quite disloyal. However, if a family becomes scorned for long enough, they may sometimes raise their own army, and that army will be loyal to the head of the family, which is usually the person who is the oldest and maybe the most prominent. If that persists long enough, it could boil over into a civil war. Well, that's a lot to take in, but I can't really boil it down any better than that. What a lot of people are probably wondering is, can you have just one big inbred family? And the answer is, I don't know. But I don't think so. You can't force marry 2 people, so unless it just happens naturally in the game, then I'm not sure that you can actually orchestrate that. Now in a monarchy, you can arrange marriage for anyone that's in the monarch's direct family, so you can have inbreeding there, and there's even a law you can pass that will allow it to occur. Egypt, for instance, I believe start with that law enacted from the beginning, and we covered it in Diary 33. Maybe if somehow all your families were killed, imprisoned or executed, and you just had one left, then maybe they do marry each other and do each other. Not sure. The diary goes on to mention that you can add additional foreign families to your country as you expand and annex others. You'll be given a dialogue option where you can kill them all, keep some, imprison some, or pass judgment on each family itself. The reason I suppose you'd want to do this is if you find yourself with not enough characters, or you feel like you don't really have any that are that good anymore, and you want to just take on more. Maybe after a few generations, like I said, your skills aren't that high. You want to increase your chances of getting highly skilled people. You could take on 20 characters at once. Chances are a couple of them are pretty good at something. But if you take on too many families, that means they're going to want jobs and income, or they'll be disloyal, as we mentioned, so you need to strike a careful balance. Every now and then you'll also imprison or get refugees from other countries. These characters don't really seem to do anything, but if you grant them citizenship, then they're eligible to work in office, and their family is added to the family's pool. So again, be careful when adding new families, and that's basically it. Diary number 40, Alliance Changes. This is a bit of a smaller diary, and it's an amendment to how alliances worked in the game. Previously, you could go to war, make an ally during that war, and then call them in to join you. If that ally was bigger than you, then they'd become the war leader, meaning that they would have the deciding factor in ending the war or not. But this is now being scrapped, as apparently wars would just spiral out of control, with countries calling in more and more of their allies into wars that would net them very little benefits. Now with the new changes, war leadership will only transfer to the bigger side if they are the overlord of a subject, or if they are guaranteeing a smaller country who gets war declared on them. The war leader can also then call in their subjects and allies, but that's as far as it goes. Further to this, alliances can now only exist between countries of the same rank. For those who don't remember, country rank is decided by how many cities a country has, and it's broken into 6 categories ranging from no cities at all, so a migrating horde, to over 500 cities as a great power. When a country shifts rank by growing or shrinking, the alliances that they had will turn instead into guarantees, where the bigger of the two will be guaranteeing the other. This means that they'll be called into the war if the other country is attacked, but not the other way around, so it's a one-sided kind of agreement. Essentially, you have to find allies that are roughly your size if you want them to help you, else you'll just have people that you will protect. If you become a great power, you're probably going to be the only one on the map, and you won't have any ally opportunities. If you want people to come to war with you while you're a great power, you're going to need subject states instead. And that's it for all the diaries in this video. I'll be back in another week or so with the next follow-up to the diaries. Due to unforeseen circumstances, I won't be doing more sponsored videos for Paradox, and I won't be producing any more early access videos using the game itself, so apologies to those who are waiting on the next start position video. When the game does release, I will of course be making guides and reviews to help people learn the game or decide if it's worth the purchase. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.